Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, or good evening, depending upon what the case may be. I just recently had the opportunity to visit my daughter, who is living off in Europe. So if I had joined 2 days ago, I would be saying good evening to everyone as far as where I am. And I know some out on the West Coast just now getting into the afternoon hour. It'd be great if we had anyone from Hawaii joining us, but we never know who else is going to be on. But welcome. It's very good to have you with us this afternoon. We have already hit the record button. We're going to jump right in. We do expect that there'll be people joining us as we continue to go through the meeting. And for those of you who are wondering, we will be recording this, and this is also available on LinkedIn Live, depending upon how you're watching it. We welcome anyone and everyone to join us, even if you are able to watch it later and disseminate that through it. Yesterday, I'll get a little bit more into it, but yesterday I had a great opportunity to be on the Hill. Some exciting things going on there, and we get to talk about some of the prospects that we're looking at here at the beginning. So this is we'll go over this, kind of give it a recap. This is U.S. federal policy and the English language teaching field. Now, before we jump in, I always have to do these obligatory slides, and quite frankly, I shouldn't say have to. I get to do a few obligatory slides. Talk about TESOL International Association, what we have going. One of the big things this year coming up at the end of March is TESOL 2026, our international convention, which will be in Salt Lake City, Utah. That's at the end of March, March 24th through the 27th. We would love to see you out there. It is I don't think it says it on the slide, but it is our 60th anniversary. So we're very excited. Got a lot of events happening, a lot of things going on, and would love for you to join us there. So feel free to do that and take advantage of the early bird savings by February 15th. And as far as some professional learning, professional content, a very popular workshop we're redoing here, teaching reading for multilingual learners of English workshop on February 2nd through 2nd through the 6th. Natal Asher will be taking care of that, but don't have a QR code, my apologies, but you can go TESOL.org, reading-workshop to get more information and sign up for that. A couple of others here very quickly. We do have a new release out of our bookstore, Social Emotional Learning for English language educators. So you feel free to take a look at that. Go in and look at all of our publications. We have a lot of things going on there. We'll talk more about some of the free opportunities or free content that we have available as well in that. And then lastly, we do have a professional development series called Supporting Multilingual Learners of English with Exceptional Needs. I had about mid-year last year, I had an opportunity to do a webinar with our interest section for serving English learners with special needs. And the impact of policy. Great group of people, great collaborators, great colleague associations there, but feel free to take advantage of that as well. So just jump right into our content here. You may have noticed that we have Giselle Landeponce. And Giselle, my apologies. I've never actually had opportunity to go through and say, is it Ponce or Ponce or
It's Ponce.
it's Ponce. Okay. All right. I didn't want to sound like I knew what I was talking about, so I had to be careful, make sure I asked there. She is the Director of Educational Issues with the American Federation of Teachers. AFT it's not just a supporter of TESOL, but they are a collaborator and a colleague coming along with us in many of the policy efforts. So we join together in several coalitions, and are always eager to be in the room together to talk about how we can continue to advance the English language teaching field, advance and support our multilingual learners of English at all levels, wherever they may be. So, Giselle, thank you for being with us today. And I didn't know if you wanted to say hello. I made the whole introduction, didn't even give you opportunity to say hello. Please greet everyone.
No worries, Jeff. This can be like like a fun, podcast style conversation.
Well,
Uh, it's always, it's just a thrill to always, collaborate with, TESOL International Association every opportunity we've gotten. And it's just a real pleasure to be here with you today, Jeff, and with the rest of our participants. Thank you.
yeah. Well, thank you, Giselle. Pleasure is ours as well to be here. And you mentioned you identified it as perhaps a podcast. That might be something we need to talk more about. I hear the Golden Globes are giving out awards for podcasts. We could have some actually relevant content here that might get out there. But we'll have to talk about that later. And I'm Jeff Hutchison. I think I introduced myself at the beginning, but sometimes I do forget. Not only to introduce myself, sometimes I even forget. Like, well, who am I today? But Director of Advocacy and Public Policy for TESOL International Association. And if you're not familiar with TESOL International Association, we do serve the English language teaching profession at all levels of education, whether pre-K through 12, adult, higher ed, teacher training. We work across the spectrum in support of educators and teachers. We also work not just in the United States, but across the globe. And one of the things that I get to do is to have collaboration and discussions with our affiliates. We have TESOL affiliates in about 110, 115 different countries, all working to support English language learners, our English learners, multilingual learners of English across the globe. So welcome. Very good to be here with be with all of you today. So what we're going to highlight today, I think this is apropos. Giselle and I were talking about it, that we have Lady Liberty with some turbulent clouds behind her. But we want to talk a little bit about what has been happening in 2025 to the field, the impact upon learners, the impact upon schools, the impact upon communities, the impact upon us as educators. And then as we roll into 2026, what to expect? And really, where are we going from here? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? And we will hope to be able to build on this an appropriate and I don't want to be overly optimistic. I don't think anyone is overly optimistic right now, but just highlight and frame just the content of what's going on, the context of what's going on, so that we all can be better advocates and better supporters of our learners, our schools, and our communities. Um, Excuse me there. Just 1 second. So and then we will also give you some practical opportunities or practical ways and means in which you yourself can take action and be an advocate in the process. So whatever level you are, wherever you're serving, we hope that you'll have opportunity to take action and feel like you are part of really bringing your voice at the federal level. We will talk a little bit about the state level, but the main focus is going to be the impacts at the federal level. So with that, uh, you know, Giselle, 2025, what's the first word that comes to mind?
Oh
And
my
it can't,
God.
this is a family show.
Yeah, I'm gonna say chaos.
Chaos. Um, Yeah, I agree with you. I know that right out of the bat, I think one of the first things that came up that was impactful. I know AFT was all over it and has been leading in a lot of this area as well over the past year was the um, basically rescission of these protect the sensitive areas, where ICE was prohibited really from operating in sensitive areas such as schools and churches and things like that. I know that had a detrimental impact upon our education system and a lot of concern there. So we couch that in civil rights, but there's so much more. Than just civil rights. And I know that AFT has been taking a great lead here in making sure that people have the information, and schools have information, individuals have information on the impact. So, what are some of the things that in 2025 that really percolated to the top for you, Giselle?
In terms of our educators, who work with English language learners, um, just the shifting of the Office of English Language Acquisition, the uncertainty, uh, just the lack of information out of the Department of Education, then that letter meant to sow confusion about rescinding the Dear Colleague letter
Hmm.
that had gone out to state departments of education. And we started getting phone calls as to like, are they rescinding all the regulations, laws, policies that are, applicable to English language learners? The answer was, of course, no. Um, but that has just been a constant struggle, is to try to get timely, accurate information. And so we've just had to, rely on our state affiliates, state partners, state collaborators, because that's where it's at. And as a national organization, this has just been really frustrating. Writ large, two other issues that have jumped out at us have been also the chaos around student debt forgiveness. Uh,
Hmm.
for many of our educators who thought that their student debt was being forgiven because they're in public service, and also the fight against the community schools funding.
Hmm. If I remember correctly, I think you have a lawsuit on that right now. AFT does to
Yes.
go that. So I want to back up a little bit, give some context. I realize it's a lot of people on here are probably probably well immersed into just some of really the context of what's going on. But just for the sake of those that perhaps are not, I'm going to dissect a little bit about what you just offered there, Giselle, and going with the U.S. Department of Education. Um, as an agency of the federal government, it cannot be just wholesale done away with unless it's by an act of Congress. But what we have seen is a successful campaign in trying to basically make it ineffective and dismantle it by the current administration. One of the biggest things that came out of that was the reduction in force, where over half, I think, of the department personnel were laid off. And key in that was the Office of English Language Acquisition. That was an office that I think we had about 15 to almost 20 individuals that oversaw Title III of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, or Every Student Succeeds Act, as it was reauthorized. And that was almost $900 million in funds and formula grants, and went out to states to supplement and support English learners. It supported family engagement, paraprofessionals, professional development, all of that. OELA, Office of English Language Acquisition, still exists, but now it is under the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, and it is down to one individual. A stalwart individual is able. I actually, Giselle, I don't even know if I told you this. I went by to say hi to Beatrice to see how things were going, and it happened to be um, um, that day that there was that special announcement trying to just really get rid of everything and take it all down. It's kind of a little chaotic day there, but she is still there. She has been standing up as best she can to ensure that the efforts of Title III continue. Um, the other thing, this is really really important, Giselle, and you please chime in on this. And when you talked about the Dear Colleague letter, and that's a reference to January 2015 Dear Colleague letter out of the Department of Justice and the Department of Education that outlined really how state and to a degree local education agencies can ensure the educational rights of English learners. And it had a much to do also with family engagement and the rights of their families in that process. All of that was couched in a letter that's framed as guidance. It itself is not the law. It helps schools, it helps communities, helps educators understand better how to fulfill the law. So when that guidance was done, and I think Giselle, you hit it right on the head, that some people said, "Oh, well, the law doesn't apply anymore." No, the law is still the law, and it really is in the best interest if schools can continue to follow that guidance, or at least look to that guidance as they're serving the English learner population in their communities. I know there's been you hear executive orders, you hear guidance, you hear laws, but when we get down to it, the key laws that serve multilingual learners of English, serve this population. Really, it's the Civil Rights Act. It's the Educational Equal Educational Opportunities Act. That's 1974. Civil Rights Act 1964. You have Plyler v. Doe, which is really key. A SCOTUS decision from 1982 that ensures that all children and young adults have access to public education, regardless of their immigration status. Those laws, those decisions, court decisions, Lau v. Nickel, which just a year ago we had the 50th year celebration of that. Those don't go away. They are still intact, and it's something that I think a lot of miscommunication out there that, hey, OELA's gone away with. They got rid of it with the employees. No, OELA's still there. It's just small, but it's still there. Or hey, we don't have to do this for English learners anymore. No, that's not what it means when you rescind that guidance. But it does demonstrate the priorities of this administration in this. And, for me, Giselle, one of the big things that for TESOLers was the executive order that designated English as the official language. And that one, I've said this before in other webinars. People say, "Oh, TESOL should have been very happy. Everybody should learn English." I said, "Well, you don't know TESOL, and B, you didn't read the executive order." Uh, uh, and we have statements up on our site, and I know that if many people, we'll have reference to those in just a moment as well. But just the collective impact of these actions, the rescissions, the executive orders. It felt like everything was coming on us at once, and it was dismantling so much work that had been taken years, sometimes decades, to build up in service. So in light of all this, I always go back and say, I think our colleagues, I think the partners we work with, like AFT, to come alongside and stand with you in how we advocate to support not just our learners but our field. It's not all lost. Not all lost in that. Very quickly, I know there's a few other things, Giselle, on this I want to that I want to make sure that you end on this slide with to tap into. But I'll very quickly say this because this is, I said it earlier that TESOL serves educators at all levels, and we have seen the impact at all levels. Adult education, for example, is one where the administration really disrupted services for these programs across those states by withholding appropriated funds this past summer, as well as the appropriated funds that were withheld for Title III and Title IIA for instructors, Title I-C for migrant education. These all had impact on it. Another area outside of appropriations was if you're in higher education and serve international students, there were visas and travel bans going on left and right. There were terminations going on in status that schools didn't even know about, students didn't know about it, and trying to address those. I know I had one time opportunity to talk with a staffer on the Hill, and we had heard in the media, maybe 1,500, 2,000 terminations. He said, no, it's more like 5,000 or 6,000 terminations that had happened. So all of these things have a collective effect that really begins to have a cloud over what we do and how we serve. So I think my colleagues at AFT, I think colleagues at the National English Learner Roundtable, National Coalition for Literacy, but I also think all of our TESOL members and every advocate out there. I know, Giselle, you've seen them at the affiliate, your affiliate levels as well. They're doing the work on the ground. Um, I think one of the biggest things that I wasn't even involved in. I was on the sidelines. I'd participate in some calls, but I was just amazed at the work that went on in Indiana and the work that went on in Tennessee when these states tried to put forth legislation to challenge what would essentially challenge and seek to overturn Plyler v. Doe. So it was great to see the local collaboration and advocacy that was going on at those states level. I know our state affiliate in Indiana TESOL did a fabulous job in their advocacy efforts there. So just wanted to put that out there just for a minute. But Giselle, any things that you wanted to highlight? I know you wanted to talk a little bit perhaps about especially when it impacts teachers and what you have seen from your end.
Yeah, so we are already seeing um just a lot of confusion in terms of how professional development, for instance,
Mm,
is going to get its funding, and so some districts, still have their Title III funds, that are allocated, towards professional development, and there hasn't, been very much disruption. But other districts may be told, by the state, this funding is not going towards, professional development. And there are questions of, who's accountable, because now we know that the back to the U.S. Department of Education is happy to issue waivers of accountability to states. So states can take the money for, Titles I, Title II, Title III, other titles, and not necessarily spend the funds on the allocated expenditures for those specific titles. So money that was originally allocated for professional development may be spent on something else. So this will leave many districts scrambling, in terms of, like where to find funds, for professional development. And so right now, we are advising our local unions to look the way of foundations.
mm,
And we know that foundations will be hit up for a lot, uh, in the years to come, because of course it's not just education that's suffering, it's public media that is suffering. It's arts programs, humanities programs that were handled by the National Endowment for the Arts and National Endowment for the Humanities. So all of us are looking for, all of us are looking to, steal from Peter to pay Paul, basically, in the nonprofit world. And so foundations, are a good source. Nevertheless, don't lose optimism in that. Um, we know that some areas will probably be proposing school bond measures to increase funding for schools. So and we will most definitely be in favor of supporting those political strategies, trying to leverage funding that way. Uh, there is also a lot of good free professional development out there. And We know that Share My Lesson, for instance, which is a service that we provide, and you'll have the URL later in the presentation, but Share My Lesson is one great source of free professional development resources. Colorín Colorado, which I know many of our participants will be familiar with, that's a collaborative project of the AFT and our PBS station WETA. That is another source of excellent free resources for professional development. So there will be just lots of opportunities, I think, to share where we're finding these funds, how we're finding these funds, and just being in community with each other and share, being able to share this information as it comes up.
So it 2025, if I could sum it up, it gave us a double whammy here. You on one side, you don't know where the support in how you're serving your learners and your communities, your families, whether it's funding, whether it's civil rights. And on the other hand, you've got to balance the advocacy over here with, hey, I need my own advocacy. I need professional learning, professional development, not just for me, for my colleagues, for the schools, where we are, and all that costs money. And how do we move forward in that? So I think you've highlighted so the key kind of a key dual, I don't know, thunderball. I don't know what are those big balls that swing down and hit you in the middle of the head, and you go, wow, what just hit me? But there is opportunity. You don't have to feel paralyzed or numbed by that. And we are going to get to those resources in just a moment that Giselle highlighted there, so that you make sure you have them, and please disseminate them as well through this. And before we leave this slide, I just want to highlight one other aspect, because oftentimes we look at the federal level. Well, actually, two other aspects. We look at the federal level, and we know that most of the funding is that we're talking about. The federal level is on professional learning development. That's entitled Title 2A of the Elementary Secondary Education Act. We also know that there's English language acquisition, Title 3, but all that seems to be around pre-K through 12. But there is that adult education, there is higher education, the Teacher Quality Partnership Program, but also in this funding battle that we have, this appropriations battle, is impact to what we do in soft diplomacy across the globe. One of the things that I just thoroughly get to enjoy listening to the stories of what people are able to do is through the English language programs, our English language fellow programs out of the Department of State of Educational and Cultural Affairs. And that was under threat of being eliminated in the State Department funding last year, and it's still a concern for as we go into FY26. Although the just yesterday the House passed a bill that did not level fund, but nowhere near the cuts that were initially sought to by the president on that. So that's a positive that's coming out of that. So I just wanted to highlight that, and then the second thing I wanted to highlight is back to the states. Um, Giselle, you mentioned the waivers. I understand that the Iowa waiver it's a much smaller waiver has been granted. The one in Indiana is still pending. But these really speak to the importance of what you do at the state. To give you the context, if you and your schools, if your state seeks a waiver so they can have flexible spending in how these monies are put forth, they may choose to divert them into other areas. So the money that normally might be formula granted for Title III might be shifted over in some other aspect. And I say might be because it really is largely dependent upon the advocacy and being at the table there at the state level. So I can't stress enough the importance if those on the call here that are engaged in state level advocacy, whether it's you're an AFT affiliate, whether you're a TESOL affiliate, whether you're a NABE affiliate, you name an affiliate, if you're adult education, a COABE, state advocacy agent, all of these are, at the state level, the importance of what you do there, especially in this context as this administration had, I believe that was one of their mantras, shift education back to the states. Education's always been in the purview of the states, so that's a little misnomer. It's a good soundbite, but it doesn't necessarily reflect reality in that. So that's just some of the highlights without taking a deep dive into 2025. And so now we find ourselves, matter of fact, we're midway, we're already halfway through January, Giselle. January 15th. It's hard to believe. I mean, I turn around twice and this year is going to be over. So we look ahead uh, to uh, to 2026 and some of the things on the horizon. I I'll very quickly. Well, actually, Giselle, I don't know if there's anything you want to highlight in these before I get into my list, because I tend to go a little long, so I don't want to take time away from you. So, for anything that kind of you see on the horizon, what we're looking at in 2026, some of the challenges or perhaps even opportunities ahead.
Um, in terms of, just some of the challenges, for instance, when we say, civil rights and immigration, we, just have to look at what's happening in Minnesota right now.
Mm,
And what had been happening in Los Angeles, and
Chicago.
Chicago, and even, here in Washington, D.C. at the beginning. Um, and all of this is not going to relent. It's only going to get worse. And how is that going to how does that manifest itself into our classrooms? We foresee a lot more educators needing to educate themselves about trauma informed practices, because many children are going to bear the direct impact of these actions. Um, they are not going to be in the best mental health space while in school. This is going to affect learning, and obviously it's going to affect teaching. So we have to start, thinking in those terms. And also, many of our educators are going to have to become advocates for their students. Um, right now, the law is that ICE cannot come to a school without a judicial warrant. And a judicial warrant is different than a regular warrant. So ICE cannot come into a school, and we know that they're breaking that law. Um, so it's, but this is just essential information for educators to know, to have a plan to distribute information to families. Families that are undocumented still have rights to be in this country. So there is just a lot of information here, and we have a great resource guide that Jeff will be um, posting.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put that one in the chat
Oh,
now because I
yeah.
think that's very salient to
Mhm.
what you're saying. So I went ahead and put that in the chat. Your AFT immigration guide that you have
Yep.
there. So feel free to access that um, guide for educators and other paraprofessionals, those serving
Yeah,
around the community, school leaders. Um,
absolutely. And we know that it's going to affect our student population in higher ed also. Families are going to be separated. Some students may have to leave. Like we have right now, many students from Afghanistan that are going to have to return forcibly because of the uh, the situation at hand, the political
Yeah, and I
situation.
think so. What you, if correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're referencing the rescission of the temporary protected status. I think most
Exactly.
recently that was for Venezuela as well.
Yeah.
No, Somalia was the big one. I think
Yep.
that they just this week rescinded that. Now that could be a topic for a whole nother thing about temporary protected status and what it means to have it not. But what
Yeah.
and the key there. I've always worked in this field and advised individuals that were on academic visas. And whenever they said that, should I take advantage of TPS, temporary protected status, I said, well, these are the pros and cons. The huge con is when that TPS is taken away, what do you do? And that's a huge
Yeah.
concern, huge concern. Um,
Absolutely. And this is not something that educators should bear the burden alone. This is clearly a school-wide issue, a community issue. So please, and we are actually telling our own membership is do not do anything alone. Do not expose yourself alone out there. Do it in community. Do it with a group. Um, we don't want to put our educators in harm's way. So that's something else to consider. And something else that also comes to mind, Jeff, is how this is all impacting just the environment as a whole, how it's impacting teacher recruitment, teacher induction, teacher retention. Um, how are we going to attract people to go into the field under these circumstances? What incentives are we building in? Um, you know, we know in this group in our community that being an ESOL, ESL, ENL, whatever the acronym is in your region, is the best job in the world. And how do we communicate that
yeah,
to beginning teachers, to people who want to join,
yeah.
this noble profession.
And I really think this is one area where advocacy at the federal level is so needed because you have a lot of good funding programs for just that, the recruitment and training and support of educators that is being threatened to take away in the appropriations process. Um, we saw the boondoggle last October when the government shut down because they couldn't figure out FY26, fiscal year 26. And they got a continuing resolution that put us to the end of this month. That's 2 weeks away. And some of the appropriation bills have been passed. Most recently, the State Department just yesterday combined with another one. Next week, and this is huge. Next week, the House should be discussing the labor, health, and education appropriations package, which includes a lot that money for pre-K through 12, includes that money for adult education, includes that money for higher education in that. And if you want to support the profession, if you want not just learners, but support the profession, make sure that voice is heard. Part of that 890 million, for example, in the English language acquisition Title III, part of that money is set aside for the professional development grants, national NPD grants, where higher education institutions and other organizations partner with LEAs to help in the growth and support of bringing on educators serving bilingual and English learners, so or multilingual learners. And on the higher ed side, you got the Teacher Quality Partner Program. That's $70 million that sets up these grow your own programs. That's all under threat. So now is the time, not next Tuesday, but now is the time because that bill, just for everyone's information, that bill is set to come out probably Sunday, maybe Monday, and then the House is going to be discussing that. And for context on appropriations right now, the House is seeking to eliminate funding in these areas or transfer it over to another under another title, which in effect it kind of gets lost in all of that. It's kind of that one that for example, the Title I, they said, oh, we're not reducing Title I money for low income communities. But we're going to shift four other programs into Title One. Well, wait a minute. You've effectively reduced the total amount if Title One now has to take care of all these other programs as well. So it is a reduction. Title Three was set to be eliminated. Title 2A for instructional and exceptional instruction, that was set to be eliminated. Migrant education, all of these on the House side. The Senate, we like to say the Senate tends to be the adult in the room. They have put forth that they want to level fund, meaning that we keep it year over year, and we're going back to FY24 for level funding. We've been playing this game for a few years now, but your voice is needed now. Now we'll get to. I'm going to reiterate this again. It's a little bit early for me to get agitated now, but I will re-agitate myself in just a minute. I want you to contact your member of Congress today and tomorrow on Saturday until you hear that bill has been put forth. Let them know, fund education, fund education, especially for the English language teaching field, especially for English learners all across the levels. Now, I'll show you all how to do that in just a moment, but that really is key right now and where that advocacy is needed currently right now. Now, before we get to the point where we provide some of these tangible ways in which you can take action, which number one for me is the appropriations. I just want to talk a little bit about this last one where under profession, where it says professional learning and support. Obviously, appropriations is part of that. Another key aspect of that was the funding sources, the diversification of funding sources. And I'm going to put that resource in here for you that Giselle had mentioned. You can't rely upon funding sources from the federal government. Every state's going to be a little bit different in how they allocate, how they appropriate their monies for education. Some people look and say, hey, if the federal government does not fund education, that's a big problem. Yes, it's a big problem, but guess who is the largest funder of education? Federal government only accounts for maybe 10, 11%. The rest of it comes from your state and your local areas. So that's where advocacy really needs to happen as well in there. But diversify, look to other sources as well here. And Giselle had graciously found this for us, make sure that is out there. You can go through and search, say, where can I look for different sources of funding in this process? And then one other, which I think is very germane and salient to people say, hey, do I want to borrow money to go to college to get my teaching license? Okay. Well, we expected that could be any day now. We heard last fall or last November, December that it might come out by middle to late January. But there should be a Federal Register notice that redefines for graduate work how much or what qualifies as professional. And you may have seen this in the news because it took out nursing as a professional degree. It took out education as a professional degree as well in this. So it limits the amount of federal monies that you could access to borrow to go. Now, when that comes out in the Federal Register, for those of you who don't know, the Federal Register is not a case where you call your member of Congress or write a letter. It's where you yourself can submit to the U.S. government comment upon a proposed change in regulation or rule. So when that comes out, TESOL will be putting its statement out. We will encourage our affiliates to put statements out. What we don't want is everybody to have the same statement because it's going to be discounted and they'll throw it away. It needs to be contextualized to your, to you. And individuals can put these comments in as well. It's not just organizations, not just associations. Individuals can, how does this impact me? And provide that information. So we'll be looking on the lookout for when that comes out in the Federal Register. We'll let people know. We'll provide so people understand what TESOL is saying. We'll be happy to share with you what we're saying. This all becomes part of the public record for that. So things that do impact our profession that we need to be mindful of as we go forth. with that. And it was trying to think if was there anything else on this that you wanted to touch upon? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to touch upon before we go to the next one, Giselle.
Just circling a little bit back to the advocacy piece. Um, that's going to be so important to focus on. And one way to advocate on behalf of our students, and their families, is through stories.
Mm,
Who are they? What are the faces of our students, their families? What do they contribute to our communities? Um, and if you are in a place that still has a local paper, that is one phenomenal way to do it, is to elevate and amplify as much as we can, and lending a human face, a human narrative to what our native born, our citizens and non-citizen, ELLs, uh, all the attributes that they come with. They're not problems to be solved. They
amen.
they are part
Amen
and
to that.
parcel of this nation. And we need to do that. If you don't have a local paper, then your communities, your social media channels, um, uh, PTA meetings, school board meetings, town hall meetings, just any opportunity to humanize these populations that are being demonized.
I thank you very much for bringing it up, Giselle. The story to me, I know when you go and on the policy level for advocacy, numbers are vital, economic impact, population impact, business impact, etc. But without that personalized, humanized, this is this person, and because you've done this at the policy level, this person was able to succeed and go on to do this. People forget, even if you are here with unlawfully, unlawful entry or an undocumented, without status, whatever that phrase fits for you, there are ways in which people can, get on a path to correct that and address that. And it's unfortunate that we have a public narrative now that, at least in my opinion, you may disagree with me, but in my opinion, a public narrative that anyone that doesn't look like us is shouldn't be here. And it is a very dangerous public narrative to be a part of. I know with English learners, for example, if you look at the census information, and Migration Policy Institute is my source of data. I think they do a great. I
Oh,
put
they're
together,
fantastic.
yeah, put
Fantastic.
together. I took and look at their English learner population from the census, and based upon that, you take out U.S. born and naturalized, foreign born but naturalized. So this group that's U.S. citizens. Okay. That's almost 60% of the English learner population from ages 5 on up. 60% are actual U.S. citizens. So when you have an executive order that says English only, but oh, we're going to take away money for you to learn English, you are hurting millions of U.S. citizens in their path and access to meaningfully engage in society or in the economy. And even if they're not a citizen, there are so many different categories, lawful categories that people can be in. They could be here for short-term work. They could be, students. They could be tourists. They could, it goes on and on and on. And then those that aren't here, whatever means, maybe they might find themselves, a whole class of Somalian citizens, are not citizens, but Somalians that had TPS, and all of a sudden that's taken away. They have no status. So what do you do? That's where you want to make sure that on another advocacy front and helping is bringing in resources together so that people can access maybe free resources of legal immigration help, helping your communities in that way. So, boy, I that wasn't on my list to talk about, Giselle, but you prompted me with that. I say I kind of went down a rabbit hole on that one.
Well,
But
these are different times, different
yeah,
times.
different times, absolutely different times. Uh, so we'll Oh, and there was a question I want to get this real quick. There was a question from our we're also, for those of you who don't know, we're also on LinkedIn Live with this. And apparently there was a question on LinkedIn Live. What will the future be for English learners and special ed students? Boy, we need to have a whole separate webinar on that. I would encourage you, for the person that asked that, reach out to me, because that is it's a much more complex issue, especially with what's going on with IDEA and the funding there. That's one agency right now that doesn't seem to be impacted. There's a lot that around that in terms of the support that seems to be is going to remain intact. But when you combine with English learners who are special needs or exceptional needs students, what is going to be the impact there? And this is where you get into these state issues, state advocacy and being able to help there. Um, and I say, okay, so I just wanted to address that. So feel free to reach out to me you can always reach me as advocacy at TESOL.org. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And someone here just says, what's the source of my source of data? I'm not sure what that reference is on my source of data. I get data from various sources. For example, pre-K through 12 information I get from the National Clearinghouse of English Language Acquisition, get from Migration Policy Institute. For adult education, a lot of that information data is going to come from the National Reporting System, which is out of the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education. Higher education, I rely a lot on the Open Doors from the Institute of International Education, who does a survey every year. But you could also go directly to SEVIS for that information. So the data sources are numerous. Margaret, I'm not sure exactly which one. Um, oh, yeah, I wish there was one spot place we could go for data too. That would be that would be really nice. One thing, Margaret, when you do access TESOL's information, AFT's information, we footnote judiciously because we want to make sure that people have access to the information. We don't just say something and say, "Oh, I believe it's true." This is our source. This is where we got it. You too can go fact check that. That's so important too on the policy level of advocacy. Yesterday, I had opportunity to be on the Hill. We were advocating for it specifically for adult education. Um, and we're giving out information and facts. And if those facts are not supported and just, pulled out of our head or some other anatomical part of our body, you know, we're going to be seen as fools and liars and we're not going to be listened to. So you come with facts, you supported data, in that. But if you ever have a question on data, if you don't know where we get something, please feel free to email me. And if you want information on data and don't know where to go, email me as well. We'll see if we know. I'll be happy to share what we know with it. Now I realize we're getting closer to the top of the hour, so I don't want to. Yes, NAFSA has a lot too. For those of you not familiar with NAFSA National, well, NAFSA is Association of International Educators. They have economic impact statements on the just international students, not just English learners, but international students as a whole in the United States. And quite frankly, that's another area that is, the politics on the Hill. It's just getting kind of, it is ugly in many corners there. One thing that's refreshing is that we talked a lot of negative. When I go to the Hill, it's so refreshing. We sit down in a Republican office with a staffer, and they said we don't understand. This used to be bipartisan issues. Education's a bipartisan issue. And so what that tells me is that just because on the, what's out there in the narrative that we see, what they want us to see, oh, there is an attack in this area or that area, underlying the policymakers, not, I don't have this enumerated out or haven't measured it out, but especially the staffers and the policymakers themselves, they understand that education really should be and is a bipartisan issue. One staffer I spoke with yesterday, whose boss is part of the appropriations, says it's not that we're against anything. It's just that we are under duress right now in some of these top level numbers that they're having to work with. And I get that because I look at the United States. Where are we at $40 trillion in debt right now? If I remember, and part of my message is I understand that, and that is bad, but don't balance the budget on the backs of educators. Don't balance it on the back of learners. Don't do that. So advocate there with that. Um, okay, I'm sorry. I got off track again. I said, Giselle, you need a little horns. Hey, Jeff, you need to move on real quick. I'll get going off.
It's all good information.
It's
All
all
good
good.
information.
Um, Giselle, these are some of the ones that you highlighted a minute ago. I don't know if you wanted to kind of refresh your memory, say anything more about these. I'll put the links in the chat for everyone, um, so that you have those.
Yep.
Um,
So, like I said, I'm sure this audience is very familiar with Colorín Colorado. We are celebrating our 20th anniversary as a collaboration with PBS station WETA. We have, I see some of our fans there. We have become the most widely online resource on what works for English language learners. For our educators out there. And we have information ranging from what works in the classroom to these very policy issues that we're talking about, information for administrators, and all free, of course. Then we also have another service called Share My Lesson, which is for pre-K 12, is multi-subject. And for Share My Lesson, you do have to register and you do have to create a password, but it's all free. And there are excellent resources on there also for professional learning. And then the guide that I referenced earlier, the immigration guide, is on our website, aft.org. And this is where we list all our immigration related resources.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Giselle, for that. And I also put back in, just in case people might have come in and out. I realize people do that on a Zoom. The funding source that you had mentioned earlier, I'll put that link back in for people as well. I'm going to the next two things that I want to highlight here as we close out, and I've got my apologies, my slides were a little mixed up, so I'm going to go because I want to follow off of the resources that Giselle was talking about. TESOL resources, we have a lot of ours are part of professional learning series, so they are workshop based or publication based, which do require some some monetary engagement with that. But if you would like free resources, we do have a blog series, as well as an English language bulletin, which is a curated source of all things English language around well, just around the globe. It's not specific to the U.S. here. Let me see if I can put. Let's see. Yeah, I'll get my. Yeah, here's the blog, and then I will get the. You can sign up to receive in your inbox the English language bulletin. I believe it is this one right here. Yes, that is it. So put that in the chat for you as well. So feel free to take advantage of those. And then I will also say that we do have a curated source on our site as well that has AFT information. It has other places. If you're looking for, you say, hey, where do I find a school district that already has an immigration plan that we could look at and compare? We've got that there. We've got other, know your rights that other organizations, associations put out. We try to combine that together. We have as well our position statements that you can find. And let me put that in. I should have had that readily available. I did not. My apologies. But network events. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Policy and support. This is it right there. So put that out there for you as well. And then lastly, I want to go back to this other slide because this is the one I got agitated about. I want you to take action now. The one on the right that says FY26, I would please encourage you to send today and tomorrow and share with your networks, uh, sending a letter to your member of Congress and saying, please support education, support English learners, support the English language teaching field. Add your story to it. We've got it so that the message is already there. You can send it as is, or you can edit it and say what you want. Say, hey, Jeff, I don't know anything about pre-K through 12, or so you might want to just focus on adult ed, or vice versa. Maybe you don't know anything about adult ed, so you want to focus on pre-K through 12. You can edit that as you want. And feel free, as Giselle talked about, add a story. We need this because of, and let me tell you about Henry or Henrietta. Let me tell you the story about what this meant for, or maybe it's your own story, what it meant for you and your journey for professional development there. Let that be known in that. So please take advantage of it. You can sign up for alerts as well. So I do encourage you on those QR codes to make sure that you access that. And we will have this recording out. We'll also put all of the resources that we mentioned in a separate resource for you, so you have ease of access for that. And finally, or not finally, the penultimate slide here. It's not just, Giselle, I'm sorry, we should have had one for AFT. Join your local AFT. But join TESOL. If you're not the big TESOL International, please at least join your state affiliate, wherever that may be. Be part of the solution. Be active. Be engaged. Be informed. Be an advocate. And with that, wherever you are in this world, thank you. Uh, so Giselle, any last words before we sign off?
Um, thank you so much to everyone for the work that you do every day. And we don't want anyone to lose sight of the end goal,
Oh,
which is just, you know, taking care of our students in every way that we can. And this has been such a pleasure to talk with you and our audience today, Jeff.
well, thank you. And I just got a message in the chat that the QR code was not working. So let me give you a direct link on that action. Give me just a second. I will pull that up. Give me a second. I got to find that on.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
I see there's an audience member from Minnesota. Oh, our thoughts are with you.
there's that direct link for that campaign. Yeah. So feel free to please sign. Please just go through that registration process, and it will automatically send your letter to your member of Congress. It's based upon your address that you put in. So even as long as you have a U.S. address, you're able to send this message because it's based upon address. So it will send it to a representative, which would be with the district within the state, and then you can send it to your state senators as well. And if you happen to be from a district where you have a Republican on an appropriations, it is very important that you send that message. And I would love to talk with you because we always need the constituent voice talking to members, to representatives. It's so much more effective when I can be advocating on the Hill with a constituent, bringing them along. We did that over the summer uh, when uh, when they were withholding adult education funds, Title III funds, brought constituents directly to whether it's Zoom or a Hill visit, direct Hill visit, to talk with those members of Congress that were on that appropriations. And it was the Republican side we spoke to because they were the ones that we needed to get them to get over that hump and support there. Margaret asked about the recording.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Giselle, you were going to say?
I know. I was just going to point out Margaret's question in the chat.
Yeah. As soon as we get off and it downloads, then I've got to transfer it over into something that we'll send out. If you registered for it, you'll get a direct email from us. And LinkedIn Live, I think it stays there for a while on LinkedIn. I don't remember how many days it stays there. And then we will also put it up on our website. If you go, just to give a quick here, let me just share my screen again so that you know where to go. I believe I have it open now. So if you go to TESOL, just go to TESOL here, and we have up here advocacy. Go to advocacy, and then down here you can do advocacy videos. We did this one last July, so wow, that's a little late one. So I needed to. That was not a July one. That was an October one. Sorry, that was an October one we did about the shutdown. So that one right there will be replaced with the recording from today. Oh, I didn't share my screen. I'm sorry. That would be helpful if I actually shared my screen. Um, yeah, this one here. I'll put the link in. I tell you what, I one thing we advocate for is digital literacy because I really need it. Um, sometimes but that's where it will reside once we get the recording available. We can put that up there. That recording that's on that site right now is from the shutdown period, and we talked about the impact there. So, don't know if there were any other questions. If feel free, if I didn't answer a question, come off mute. Anything else you'd like to talk about, be happy to address. If not, thank you all for attending. Thank you, like Giselle said, thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for showing up every day and serving your learners, serving your communities, serving the families. That right there is an act of advocacy doing that. So thank you very much with that. So hope you have. I'm just going to check the chat one more time before I think. Yep, I think we got all the questions. And with that, all right. Well, thank you, everyone, and hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a wonderful Martin Luther King weekend. It's a day on, not a day off. Remember that. I love that saying. All right.